Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. This is going to be my favorite segment of the week. Don't tell Luke Jones or any of our other friends about that. Tim Wendel is back. Writer, teacher, voice, author, my former baseball friend. This whole thing happened when we were sticking to sports back in the 90s, and you were the USA Today baseball writer and all that stuff. And now you're on this leukemia journey and writing books, and your brother and the Leukemia Lymphoma Society and my wife's journey. And here we are still talking baseball 25 years later, Tim. How you been, man?
I'm doing great. It's so good to hear your voice.
Well, you know, I always like to make a big deal about your professorship and your Johns Hopkins this, but you have a unique connection to Baltimore, as I do Baltimore Positive around here. You've spent certainly enough time around Baltimore to have an opinion on it, right?
Oh, very much. I mean, I've been up there for a long time. Almost moved there about 3 years ago when some things were going on with Hopkins, but that didn't quite work out. But no, I love Baltimore. I love going up to games and all that, and Homewood, and it's a part of my soul, man.
Well, give me your soul at this point. It's part of your soul. You've written books about baseball, been a baseball author. You've moved out of the toy department where writing leukemia books and doing serious stuff with serious scholarly people. Baseball in 2019. That's why I call you. That's the basis of our friendship. We'll get to leukemia in a minute. I mean, I don't know if you see the images coming out of Oriole Park when they're playing the Dodgers last week or they're playing the Blue Jays this week. Or there are hundreds of people going to Orioles games now. And I mean, it is Montreal Expos, late 90s sort of madness. The notion that they might move is only poo-pooed upon amongst the people that are left in the fan base that just don't remember the Colts leaving, and I know you do as well. You've had an interesting background in sports and doing all this and talking to owners and people, but baseball teams don't move. That's, the word, baseball never moves. I still have the Nate Colbert and Dave Winfield cards from back in 74 when the Padres were going to Washington, right? But baseball teams can't continue to stick where they are, where it's not working, like Tampa and like Baltimore and other places, without some infusion of making it better. And the sport itself is really struggling right now as we go into the postseason.
Very much so. I mean, it's become sport itself, as you well know, Nestor. It's kind of like long fly balls that may be homers and everybody throwing 100 miles an hour. And I even did a book on that high heat when it seemed to be kind of novel. And now everybody is able to, crank it up to 100 miles an hour. And we got parades of relievers. And I think we're going to see a postseason where, thanks to Dave Shine and at the Post, I didn't really know this term, so he laid it out for me. The opener, where in a sense we could see playoff games starting with the reliever as the opening, as the starting pitcher. So going back to Baltimore, I was channel surfing the other night, and I love Camden. Camden's a big part of another one of my books, Down to the Last Pitch, on the 1991 season, and what just a pioneering, iconic landmark that is, because so much of what baseball is today in terms of venues and stadiums goes back to Camden. It goes back to Janet Marie Smith and reinventing the wheel and what baseball can be, especially in a downtown sector. I'm channel surfing the other day, and I'm going, did I miss the start time of this game? Because it still looks like it's, batting practice or something.
Well, Tim, you were around when Governor Schaefer dreamed this up, and I have Marty Conway on all the time, and Larry Lucchino, and Charles Steinberg, and Janet Marie, and what it was supposed to do, and what it was supposed to be for our city as someone that's paid taxes here for 17 years, it should be screamed about like bloody murder, the way I have screamed about it like bloody murder for 25 years. And to see what it's become and what apologists make it out to be, it's disgraceful to me. And it's not what it was intended to be. And now the boys are going to hold a gun to the head of the community one more time for whatever the next thing is going to be, or they're going to sell the team. And Dad's apparently overlooking the city right now, but, not ready to make decisions at any. And no one asked any questions about this civic institution that was a foundational part of our Disney World package that included the aquarium and the science center and hotels and the convention center and, all of that goes around the Inner Harbor that has fallen into such decay over the last 15 years.
Yeah, and I think it's tragic, Nestor. And then in large part, I can remember when this was in the planning form, because I was covering it for USA Today. I was up there a lot. And one of the things, I don't think people quite realize what an iconic, and you're right, a civic institution it is, that Camden is. And what it could have been would have been even more tragic, at least from an architectural standpoint. I still remember Larry Lucchino being in his office when he was with the Orioles and saying, do you want to look at something? And groundbreaking was underway. You weren't quite sure what Camden was at that point, but it was...
Larry probably had mud on his shoes from walking around down there, right?
Probably did. And the thing is, he said, take a look at this. And he goes to this filing cabinet and pulls out these plans. And I can read plans pretty well. I'm the son of an engineer, and so I'm like looking at this, and I'm going, "What are these? In a sense, why are you showing me this?" And he's going, "Well, this was the original plans for Camden." And I'm going, "Really?" And there was surface parking everywhere. The warehouse had been leveled, and I was just like looking at this, going, it was like a parallel universe. And
wow!
And yet the Orioles fought back, and I think we're really the first ball club, in a sense, or sports institution, sports team, to not just say, an HOK kind of says, yeah, here it is. It's from on high. Here's your plans. Oh, thank you. We will build this, and they will come, type of thing. And to the Orioles' credit, and this is mostly Lucchino, it's Janet Marie Smith, they said, no, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough for Baltimore. This isn't good enough for the Inner Harbor. We need something that fits. We need something where people can walk to the games.
Tim, you're making the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because I know you were there the day Sutcliffe, pitched.
Yes.
I know I'm a Baltimore guy. I was at the Harbor the day Harbor Place opened in 1980, 81, right? So, I've been going to the Inner Harbor since it was a field, and I look back on those videos with a young Governor Schaefer, then a young Mayor Schaefer, talking about a dream in front of the McCormick factory, you know what I mean? And that day in 1992, opened possibilities for our city that, as I sit here in 2019, it almost makes me like throw up in my mouth a little bit, like for what the political capital, what it meant, the possibility, and how it's been grossly squandered. You know what I mean? Like,
very much. You just hit the word I was thinking about. It's been squandered. And you think of 92 when this whole adventure starts. I can still remember when I would go up for USA Today and for Baseball Weekly, one of the things I'd love to do when I was at Camden was go over to the visiting clubhouse. Now, granted, I had some work to do, got to interview some people. But one of the things I used to love to do was, especially teams that hadn't been there a lot, or the first time they were in a Camden, I'd go over and just sit in the visiting dugout, and just the look on their faces. And baseball players, as you well know, are pretty jaded cats. And just
they all wanted to look around. I mean, the first 3-4 years the ballpark was open, they needed to get a tour of the ballpark. They wanted to see what was underneath. They wanted to go up in the press box and, test the hot dogs. And it was a place to see. It was a place everybody wanted to be. And I think even back about the bow ties, right, with the ushers, and that everyone was sort of Disney trained. I spoke to a friend this week about going to the Ravens game this week, and anyone that went to the Ravens game this week got a different sort of an experience where every usher asked you how your day was going and like all of that. Where that, I've been going to Ravens games for 20 years. The Ravens clearly have Disneyfied their Chick-fil-A-ness of, my pleasure and, all of that stuff. That's what Camden Yards was supposed to be in 92, and that's what it was. It was supposed to be this sort of utopian Disney baseball experience. I mean, I remember that the warehouse was going to be like a place people came and had dinner and had 5-star dining, and they were going to open up Boog's Barbecue all day, and everyone from downtown was going to have lunch there, and it was going to be sort of its own little park space. And my God Almighty, that I would have to go back and watch all of that PR and say, what happened? What happened in 27 years here?
Yeah, and what happened is a great question because you're rolling off, a place you could go have lunch, a place you could look over the field. I mean, all that's very doable, especially with a facility like that because I still go around the country, a lot of ball games, doing various projects. And time again, I'll go into, say, in Cincinnati, I'll go to San Diego, Petco Park, et cetera, et cetera. I was just out in San Francisco, and that's a little bit different thing. But you can see the earmarks of Camden everywhere. I mean, this was the big trendsetter, and yet now to be having this conversation, 20, 25 years, 27 years later, that potentially the team could move. I'm still mystified because that is still. I still get questions at times. What are your favorite ballparks? And I'll talk Pittsburgh, I'll say San Francisco, et cetera. But Camden's still right up toward the top, even when it's me and maybe only 100 of my closest friends at a game.
Tim Wendel is here. He is an author. He's written more baseball books than you could probably read, at least certainly this offseason. Has inked a book on leukemia and an incredible journey with his brother and involving my wife and through all of this, Cancer Crossings, a brother, his doctors, and the quest for a cure to childhood leukemia. And it touches everyone. And Steve Bisciotti's lost his father to leukemia. So it just, there's sports things that happen all over the place. We had a young man make it back to baseball from leukemia a couple of weeks ago as well. So it's out there, and these stories are there. And I know you're into the leukemia thing right now. Before I get to that, because we're going to get to all of that, the baseball thing and postseason. I've screamed about the Orioles. You've screamed. You told me a wonderful story about Camden Yards that I wish I could just reel in. What else do you know about Camden Yards? I don't know, Tim. And get some popcorn. But there is this thing that they're rebuilding, and I'll buy into all that. I'll buy into the fact that they can make the minor leagues better. I'll buy into the fact that the boys aren't really looking to sign Sid Fernandez or Chris Sabo in the offseason. But I'm also really, really in tune with the fact that the old man's dying. The boys can't pay the estate taxes. The boys want out of this thing. The boys clearly have shown no interest in running it. Mom just wants to get rid of it. And there's nobody home. There's nobody running it. They're promising better players down the road. They don't know what they're doing to sort of heal anything with people like me. But baseball's so broken, right? And taking it back to that, we're now going to go into this postseason where who knows who's watching. Tim, how are they going to grow the game back to even get people like me and you and Dennis Colazzos who love baseball back to baseball games? I know so many old white people like me, 50 and, that love baseball that never go anymore, never think of going anymore. I don't know what would get me back. And when it comes time to go back and I pull my credit card out, I'm going to say, how much? For a Tuesday night against the Twins? And, man, it's sailing, man. It's sailing very, very quickly in my life. I got a lot of life left in me, Tim Wendel. I don't know how much of it's going to be spent sitting in a plastic seat at a ballpark watching a game full of guys that don't care about me that I don't care about anymore,
Yeah, it's a deep, deep hole, and it's something that I talk with a lot of people, and as you were talking about that, and that's one of the things I was reminded of. I've got a son. What is he? 27 now, and we've gone to. He now lives in London. We've gone to so many sporting events over the years. I mean, Big East tournament, all these baseball stadiums, etc.
What was his first love when he was 10, though? Was it baseball because Dad did baseball?
It was a catcher, and he loved it. And it was about a year ago. He told me, I can't watch this anymore. Oh. And I'm just like going, this is something we had, and we got talking a little bit about why. And one of the things, English Premier Soccer is great. I mean, I kind of, when I watch it from afar, he's become a Chelsea fan. He goes to games, and I watch it on TV, and that's one of the cool things you can do these days in sports is I can be watching, a Chelsea game on NBC in my house in Virginia, and he can be at the game, or we can be texting, about.
Well, it's also 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and what the hell else you got to do besides vacuum, right?
Yeah, and the other thing he loves about that, and this is kind of this generation, and it's somewhat me too, is, English Premier Soccer is fast, is exciting, all this. I don't know half of it, but one of the things he tells me is he goes, it's over in less than 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I can go on to the rest of my day. I've seen a great game. It moves at a brisk pace. I mean, I'm not waiting for the third reliever to come out in the seventh inning or something as we mix and match righties and lefties and all this. And I hear what he's saying. And I'll tell you, the other day, I think I saw a triple. I forgot who hit it. I should have marked it down. I saw a triple. I was watching a game, and I just sat there, a little dumbstruck, going, "When's the last time I saw a triple? That was great." No, and that's one of the problems. It's boom or bust. We're very much.
Where's Willie Wilson when you need him? Is that
Where's Willie Wilson? Where's
Tim?
Guys, where's Tim Raines?
Well, there you go. Yeah, you can have yours. George Brett had a lot of triple. I'm going to Kansas City this week, so I got a little barbecue on my breath and baby blue uniforms and too bad. I got all these Kansas City writers on for the Chiefs game, and it was like yesterday. It was the Royals and the Orioles were and now both of them are in this hole again that lasted 2 decades for both franchises last time. And then you see what the Yankees and the Astros are doing. And I guess the biggest concern for me for the future of the Orioles is really what the Nationals are going to become once they are freed from the Angelos Masson jail. And I do worry. Is Baltimore a two-sport town? There are no Fortune 500 companies here. The Ravens have had issues. The Ravens had plenty of empty seats last week, and I'm sure will again next week. People don't want to come in here as tourists. People don't want to come in here as citizens. I'm gravely concerned that you can just say, well, baseball never moves, teams never move, the Orioles are the Orioles, Camden Yards is beautiful. We've waxed about all that. Now, Tim, bring me back to the cold reality of two-sport town, where's the money? The Ravens don't appear to be going anywhere. They feel a lot more stable. And the Nationals feel like this thing that's become a little bit more institutionalized 15 years in, that you and I are probably still a little uncomfortable with the fact that they exist, right? You live in the market. Mm-hmm. It is still a little fresh and weird, and when are they going to become the Senators? None of that's happening. The Nationals and that neighborhood that has sprung up around there, all of that, it feels to me like, boy, the Orioles aren't the Mets or the White Sox. They're the A's. You know what I mean? They're not going to be the little engine that could in the big. They're not the Angels. They're the A's. They're the team that now is in the outcast city, in the outcast place, in the pretty ballpark, in the bad neighborhood, with the bad team and the lousy owners. And, I mean, you can't sell Cal Ripken and Brooks Robinson anymore. You really can't. The people like me that care about it don't care about it and aren't going to go back anymore. And quite frankly, don't really believe that Brooks Robinson cares all that much about it at this point, other than showing up and being an employee of doing it after being kicked around for 30 years, which I witnessed,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you bring up Oakland, and I'm afraid maybe that's the way Baltimore's slotted. And the other thing that kind of has me a huge reservation is one of the things that they've embraced in baseball is this whole total rebuild thing. And the Houston Astros are probably the last great example of it, and how you've got to tear down so much. I mean, if this was a house, you're tearing it down to the studs. And so therefore you're going to build it back up from there. I go, yeah, okay, that's great. Astros.
Now, what do I do in the meantime?
Team.
I'm just going to be waiting here while you serve me bad. It's a restaurant saying we're going to serve you lousy food for 5 years. Well, good. I'll come back in 2024 when you put a fresh meal in front of me.
And the other thing to compound it is, in the back of my mind, I keep going, this is okay, great, maybe working model, worked in Houston, etc. At some point, it's not going to work. And boy, I don't know what happens then. You have to ask your fan base, as you say, to take substandard fare in a restaurant for X amount of years, and then it doesn't maybe get better. You're not a contender. Wow, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
Well, Seattle, right, has been, and the Reds, and I mean, there have been places where they have said, places where there's a real fan base, not Tampa,
those are huge regional fan bases that you just mentioned, especially Seattle. I mean, Seattle could, and they are, kind of put out substandard fare, and you'd still, if you're trucking around the Pacific Northwest and going to a bar in Portland, you're probably seeing a Mariners game. So it's, but as you say, once the Masson thing straightened out, yeah, I can see the Nats spending a lot more money and arguably need to, because in my mind, their clubhouse is still a little bit wacky. How they're blowing this wild card lead is, kind of bizarre.
Well,
But
this
anyway,
should be a really good couple of weeks, right? I mean, if you love baseball, the wild card, all the things that would play into this, the trading deadline, and the big bad wolf of the Astros and the Yankees and the Dodgers sort of sitting there waiting. There are enough cities to be interested in this that you would think ballparks would be buzzing. There would be big 3-game matchups coming up in the next 2 weeks, and that in the places where they're sort of teetering, I don't get that buzz either. And that's the thing that concerns me the most and it concerned me here 5 or 6 years ago. The Orioles had one, blisteringly great year where they were great. And they really weren't selling a whole lot of tickets this time of that year either because they had a 12-game lead. And in the years when they've been the scrappy little wild card, Bucky, in Buckwheat Trust and all that, they haven't sold tickets. It's been a long time since the Orioles have sold tickets for games that matter, for pitching matchups, for the old school stuff, for the things that would make my dad want to get on the bus and go out to 33rd Street because Flanagan's pitching tonight, or, hey, the Brewers are in town and it's Sutton and Palmer, and, we got to go out there because we're 2 games behind and we need to win 3 out of 4 this weekend. Those baseball axioms and the things that I grew. I don't. It's what kind of craft beer are they serving, and can I get a bobblehead to go? And is it Star Wars night? What geek night is it tonight? So I can go there and get some Jedi night or so. I don't know what the hell they do, but I think that they have a real problem with the sport in that people caring about the sport, like that they've nerded it up so much that I don't care about that stuff. And they've scienced it up with velo and flight tracking and pitch track and all the science fiction. And then I say to myself, who cares about the players anymore? And like what's going in strategy? And there is no strategy. There is no more hit and run. There is no more stealing bases. They've negotiated all that out of there so that when a guy like me who hasn't watched a baseball game in 4 months, when I finally come back to it in October and relievers are starting and starters are relieving and dogs are cats and cats are dogs, and I mean, we already know the postseason, the way the games are managed is already not like baseball, So I don't know what the hell I'm going to find or whether I'm going to enjoy it on a Tuesday night when the time comes 2 weeks from now for whatever these wild card 1-and-out games are that are kind of exciting, as to whether I really, care about the Phillies or not, or whoever's there, right?
Right, and I think the TV ratings are going to be real interesting. I'll be watching those. I got a question for you. I mean, Baltimore fans have always struck me as being very savvy. They really know their respective games and
It's
such.
over. It's over.
Can they? Well, in baseball land, can they win? Can they get those fans back, or are those fans?
I'm telling you, when I put the
gone?
postseason on, Tim, I'm not going to recognize a lot of the players, right? Like if you held a gun to my head right now and said to me, name the Tampa Rays, I mean, come on, right? I mean, I'm not being mean. I mean, name the Oakland A's. I mean, name the Cleveland Indians. One of those teams won't even be there, right? So, it's been a pretty good year for baseball in that way. I don't notice it because I'm in Baltimore. You know what I mean? Nobody ever comes up to me and talks to me about anything other than when Angelos is going to die, what's going to happen, is the team leaving. There's no more, is Cal Ripken going to buy it? I always say, what is going to be the army of energy that resuscitates this thing, because it's not winning, it's not bobbleheads, it's not Cal Ripken. I don't know what it is. I haven't met it yet. I don't know. I haven't met Adley Rutschman. I haven't met the thing that's going to save the Orioles, because the thing that's going to save the Orioles are the businesses and human beings that love baseball loving it again, because I don't love it anymore. And my name's Aparicio. And I live 2 blocks from the ballpark. And not only can you not give me a ticket, you can't give anybody a ticket. Because I see it on Facebook, and I live down here, and I've watched the tumbleweed blow through. And I've been the guy that's been banned, bitched about all that stuff. But I asked the question, how does it get resuscitated? Because if your idea is, well, we're just going to play better baseball and get some chewing tobacco, and everybody's going to come back, I don't believe that. I mean, it's not working that way for the football team, and they have the most exciting player in the sport right now, and they had 5,000 empty seats on Sunday,
Well, if you haven't met them, I'm beginning to think they're not out there because.
Well, that's why I worry about the
everybody,
team leaving, Tim.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really why I worry about it, because I don't see this army of anything coming back to the Orioles that smells like dead presidents in green-colored paper, which is what the person who buys them for $1 billion, 2, 4, 6, whatever, whomever buys them, even Kevin Play, even if it's a do-gooder, if it's me because I hit the lottery and I love Baltimore and I love the Orioles and I love you, come on back, and then nobody comes back and I'm in debt. The next thing is hello, Nashville. And the lease is up in 2 years, right? So whomever assumes responsibility for buying it, selling it, the lease terms are everything in a depressed market. And I don't see another 30-year lease coming here, Tim. This is going to be hey, we'll give you a 5-year lease and let's see what the next mayor looks like and whether the next mayor is going to prison or not, right? Like that's where the city is right now. And I don't see Rob Manfred being like, I don't think Rob Manfred cares whether Camden Yards has tumbleweeds if Nashville's going to give him a bigger, better deal and bring 3 million people to the ballpark. And there are 12 corporate sponsors ready to name the parking lots around there. And the Tennessee government's going to put up $400 million because they can prove that they're going to bring 2.2 million people to downtown Nashville, on summer nights. I mean, that's how Camden Yards got built. Good luck getting that through Larry Hogan and whoever the next mayor is here, that the Angelos family wants to annex the parking lot to build the thing that St. Louis has, or the thing that Philadelphia, the sports bar out in the parking lot, so that they can try to milk that. That's going to be the ask. I mean, this is a real civic debate, I think, between the state, the city, and whomever is responsible for owning the Orioles, because the lease is up in 2 years. That's really dangerous, Tim. It's really, really dangerous.
Very much so. Very much so. Well, this is going to be wild to watch. I just... I love talking with you because I get, I don't know, I kind of feel like I get the straight scoop. And again, a part of me is one who was covering the building of Camden, was there first season's very first game, etc. I'm just a little boggled how much it's like gone sideways in 25 years or so.
Well, Tim, the snapshot of the empty stadium says it all, right? Like that,
And you're seeing those all over. And so then you've got to scramble to the bottom among whatever franchise are going on with it. And is one, I cut my teeth covering baseball in the Bay Area, and I think you're absolutely right with the Oakland analogy, because that's always been the poor stepchild. I was just out in Bay Area, last month, and went to a A's game, and I'm just like going, gosh, it's the same old struggle, isn't it? And they have sold their soul to the devil in so many ways.
Charlie made it exciting. Billy Martin made it exciting. There have been books written about Billy Beane and Moneyball, and movies made with Brad Pitt about it. And the green and gold is my high school colors. Kelly green and gold. Go Owls. Let each fellow join our chorus. And no one goes. I mean, going back to Joe Rudy and Campy and tennis and, right? Like it's my whole lifetime, nobody's gone. And, Tim, it rings in my ears dealing with Angelos. The one night that he came out, and I play the interview all the time, and I encourage anybody to go listen to it. It's up on YouTube, whatever, where Peter Angelos sat with me right after firing John Miller in March of 1997 and made his Perry Mason soliloquy. Well, we don't believe Washington should have a ball club. We believe the same thing will happen that's happening. The two cities will cancel each other out like they do in the Bay Area, and you'll have two poor-performing franchises. So I've listened to, I can do all of that, and now it's 22 years later, and all of the money is in the Angelos family heirlooms. All of the life has been sucked out of the ballpark, right? All the fans have been sucked out, but they've made so much money, off of Masson, off of the Washington Nationals, and I'm wondering what's going to be left, what shell of a soul of a franchise is going to be left here when this is done, and then quite frankly, who is going to be the people or the persons who are the Larry Lucchino, Janet Marie Smiths, Charles Steinbergs, Marty Kahn, the Frank Robinsons, those people that were there at that tender moment that made all of this happen, because there is no Superman, right? I mean, it really does take a village, and the village needs to care about the Orioles. And you remember when it did a lot in a big way. It was the most important thing going on here. It's not anymore. And I don't know what I'm a little shuddered about it as well. And I guess it's therapeutic to talk to you, Tim Wendel. Let's talk some leukemia and Cancer Crossings. And where are you in this journey? Because my wife is. You always ask how my wife's doing beautifully. She's 4 years soon out. The man who saved her life has asked her to be the best person in his wedding in Germany next April.
Has he really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So we're headed over to Cologne and to Dortmund in the spring. So for you and your book and your journey, it's been a little while. Bring me up to speed and bring everybody to the back page of your book about your brother and what took you on this journey, because I know you're doing amazing things with leukemia research with your book, man.
Oh, thank you. It's just if somebody had told me 5 years ago I was going to be doing some of this, I would be going, "You're crazy." But I lost a brother to acute lymphoblastic leukemia almost 50 years ago now, and I didn't think much of it until my daughter, who's actually 4 months left in her residency as emergency room medical doctor down at Wake Forest, brought it up when she was at Georgetown Medical and said, "Dad, you lost a brother to leukemia?" And I went, "Yeah." And she started asking me all these questions about doctors and meds, and I couldn't answer any of them. So I went in search of it, and that's became Cancer Crossings. And one of the interesting things I'm doing right now, I think, Nestor, is you hear a lot about a cancer moonshot, and there's amazing things going on. I think, though, to really do it to the hilt, to do it correctly, we've got to remember the past. And 50 years ago, you had a very select group of doctors back when leukemia was told, they were all being told, it's impossible, it's incurable.
Well, the day my wife had it, I mean, obviously 5 years, it changes everything, but all I really knew about leukemia, well, Chuck Pagano was in my phone, but all I really knew was I'm a sports guy, right? So I knew Brian Piccolo, and I know Song for Joey, and I can only imagine, what those movies did to you, because I remember crying to both of those movies when I watched them on cable TV in 1979 when I was 10 years old. You know what I mean? So that's what I knew about leukemia, all of my life. And it's clearly defined the last 5 years of my life. There's not a room I walk into where someone doesn't ask about my wife. And I've had to learn about things, including where my wife got leukemia, which was 9/11. She was a first responder. We did not realize that until 12 months ago. So all the Jon Stewart stuff that was going on the last 6 months in D.C., my wife has had a special interest in that as a first responder survivor, which she never thought of herself as being. So our journey's taken up another fork down the yellow brick road as well. And for me, it was sports and leukemia and Brian Piccolo and Joey Capoletti, right? That's all I knew about leukemia because of books. And I would think maybe that was similar to you, even though your brother, you weren't in search of leukemia for 50 years, literally, right?
No. It was very recent. And I was just down at, it's interesting because we've come so far, and I hear about, Jen's story and you get so heartened. And I was just down in Atlanta, and Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, this is kind of where we're at. Government money is somewhat dried up for effective clinical trials. Leukemia and Lymphoma Society has raised $50 million for a clinical trial they'll roll out early next year. So I was down in Atlanta for the launch, speaking there, and trying, in a sense, to say, here's the past. Remember these amazing doctors, the cancer cowboys who were called. Now what they want to do is take childhood cancers to 100% cure rate. And I think they're close. It's amazing what's going out there from a technical standpoint and a medical standpoint. I have one concern, and this is where I'm kind of sounding the warning a little bit, and it's a little bit of a sports motif in a way, is I've been to a lot of hospitals in the last year around the country. Southern California, Bay Area, been up to Hopkins several times, MD Anderson, Roswell Park, it goes on, talking about the select group of doctors in Cancer Crossings 50 years ago and how we've got to remember them and, if anything, emulate them. And I go to these places and everybody's doing amazing work. It's incredible. But everybody kind of wants to be number 1. And I'm worried right now it's all becoming kind of siloed. And I think the closest And
well, it's a
one of the
for-profit
things,
industry. You find that out when
yeah,
the bill comes. You find that.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you find that out when your wife needs something to stay alive, and the insurance company doesn't want to pay for it.
right.
And
But if
I
we're going to take
saw that
this
in
to
every.
100%, we've got to, somebody's going to have to be a supportive role. Some hospitals going to be more of a secondary tier. And they're trying with this new clinical trial. And one of the things they're doing, it's going to be very interesting to see if it works, is everything's going to go into this huge database. And if you don't contribute, you don't get, in a sense, kind of the results coming off the other end. And they want 150 hospitals worldwide. This isn't just U.S., it's worldwide. And one of the things I'm going to be watching, and I'm kind of sounding the alarm a little bit, is what's the cooperative level going to be? Is everyone going to be in it for, for themselves, so to speak, and say, yeah, we're the hospital that cured this, and et cetera. Or the only way I think it's going to be done is if it's a much more of a cooperative effort. And that's going to be rolling out in the next 12 to 18 months. And I think for people like you and me that have kind of been brought into this, because of loved ones and such, it's going to be very, very interesting to watch. Can we take this last step and really cure cancer in our lifetime? Because if we are, it's going to take everybody, and it's going to mean not everybody is going to get all the accolades. Particular hospitals are going to have to play a more secondary role, and that's going to be interesting to watch. I don't know if they're quite going to be able to do it.
Well, Tim, I'll tell you what, man. Game 1 of the ALCS, I should have you up to my condo for some hot dogs, some ice cold beer, and some nachos. You know what I mean? Sit around and watch a ball game from somewhere. I think Astros, Yankees will be interesting, and Dodgers. I could be lured into the postseason, and I could find, my next Joe Panic that I fall in love with as a ball player. You know what I mean? I could find the next George Brett or Sixto Lescano that I love, but I miss the day-to-day, caring about the team, loving the team. I mean, I built my whole life, my whole radio station, my whole career around love of baseball. And 30 years later, we're all sitting here scratching our heads and trying to save the baseball team here.
I miss it so much, too. I'm not turning to the box scores, or the standings each. To prepare for this show today, I had to go, okay, hang on a minute. I better look at the standings again. What's going on in the wild card and such? And this used to be the first thing I turned to every morning, and it kind of shows a little bit how the world has changed.
Well, I mean, you just didn't stick to sports. How dare you not stick to sports and do important things like leukemia? Tell everybody what you do up at Hopkins as the in residence. I'm waiting for that title. I'm hoping it happens at some point.
Oh, I've said, when I step down, it's going to you. So it's the deal's in.
Oh man.
Mostly I just try to
better hope I don't take a life insurance policy out on you.
I better lie low. No, I just try to get my students to write better, because I think writing and be able to communicate your message in this day and age is immensely important. And I have been so fortunate to have some amazing students. I've had, 10, 12 of them now. I've done first novels. Monica Hesse at the Post is one of my former students. I've had 20 of them or more do nonfiction books, and that is totally unexpected. When they offered me this position 15 years ago when I first started to teach there or more, and I didn't go in and get my grad degree to teach. Some people do. I didn't. And then to do my first class, and that's where I get that's what keeps me going, is those couple students who want to conquer the world, take on things, storm the ramparts. I'll go, yeah.
I want to be a student of Tim Wendel. Can I be?
Yeah, sure. But that's what keeps you going. And I think you find this too. I mean, you can kind of go through your day-to-day life and, there's certain things I got to do, and I got to put bread on the table, blah, blah, blah. But every now and then, and I've almost tried to do it now, almost try to find somebody like once a week that just kind of energizes me.
Just text me anytime, dude.
Again.
I'm here at WNST. That's what I do, man. That's what I do.
I know, and that's why I love listening to you. And the thing is, the more people you can bring into your life that do that for you, wow, the happier cat you are. And I think, it's funny, because sometimes people go, I've had the very good fortune to study with some amazing teachers. Oakley Hall wrote Downhill Racer, Alan Schuse, who used to be on NPR. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And sometimes my students will go, wow, you were really lucky to study with all those people. And I'll go, well, yeah, I was lucky, but I also sought them out. I also put myself, in their path and kind of said, I'm here. I'm listening. What do you got? And I think in some ways, the more you can do that in your everyday life, it just keeps you going. You have to in this day and age. You got to find the people that, as Jack Kerouac said, burn, burn, burn like Roman candles across the sky. And we all go, the more of those people you can find, the more it keeps you alive.
Yeah, my son's trying to get me to take the comedy thing with Steve Martin, seeking good teachers so I can be funnier. So I'm working on that. But, trying to be a better writer, it's interesting. I found, I'll hold this up for the camera because it's crazy, but I found my college papers. I got an A and I got a B. But, what are you going to do? I mean, I found these in an old notebook. I was going through looking for some old autographed stuff when Rick Ocasek died last week, and I wound up finding my college papers. So I remember back when I used to get grades. Now I just get thumbs down or thumbs up or love or sad faces. I get emojis now.
We're in the land of emojis.
Tim, I love you, man. We'll see you soon. Hopefully watch a ball game, get a hot dog, have an adult beverage, and talk more about saving some lives. Tim Wendel's been our friend. You can find him. Cancer Crossings is the book. A brother, his doctors, in the quest for a cure to childhood leukemia. Has written more baseball books than I can name. Castro's Curveball, Summer of '68. I had someone on, Kent Babb was on this week, Washington Post writer, who grew up an Atlanta Braves fan and described the Braves and the Twins as the worst experience of his life. And I said, I guess you didn't read Tim's book. So he said he will never read about anything where the Braves lose. And I'm like, well, they only won once. So
I was going to say, he's missing a lot of stuff.
Suffering baseball fan. I said Leo Mazzoni brings that up every time as well. Tim_Wendel, writer in residence at Johns Hopkins. That is my future title. He's promised it to me. I have it on tape. You can find him out there and go get his book as well. Baseball's around the corner. Football is everywhere. From Kansas City to Cleveland to Pittsburgh to Cincinnati. Luke is out in Owings Mills. I am Nestor. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.